We are in one of the most important weeks in DC and movie history. Superman releases on July 10th.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass on, man.
And your boy will be in the theaters, like many of you, to see if this movie actually has the sauce. And if it does, that will shape the next half of this decade and perhaps cinema itself. But there are a ton of questions and challenges that need to be answered, and that is exactly what we're going to be doing here today. We'll talk about the past decade and how the MCU and Snyderverse have shaped this one, and so much more. So let's get into it. This whole franchise rests on the shoulders of Superman. Yes, I'm stating the obvious, but in order for this franchise to even be a thought in someone's head, this movie needs to be a true blockbuster. Based on the highest grossing movies according to Box Office Mojo, as of the recording of this video, Superman would need to make at least $1.3 billion worldwide to be a true success that would launch the DCU, in my opinion. Until then, all bets are off. Can it do that? Of course it can. As I mentioned in my last video, Why People Hate Superman, the sheer amount of hatred has really overshadowed what a colossal name Superman is. I mean, we're talking about the superhero, the guy that has led comics for nearly a century. When we think of the term superhero, we think of him. I think it's a great sign that the trailer on YouTube did the best numbers in Warner Brothers history. To me, that shows there's interest and legit hype behind this movie. And while you might say Man of Steel didn't do that well at the box office, which is true, I would argue that Superman stock was not high back then. And in fact, that the apathy towards him was at an all-time high, meaning that the ticket sales were going to be at an all-time low. Again, I would just tell you to watch my last video about Why People Hate Superman to get more info on that. Plus, Man of Steel was very poorly received, and there was also a lot of other blockbusters and movies around the early 2010s, and in general, we just had a lot more variety back then than we do now. Point being, it was not the best time for a Superman movie to do well, even if it was done right. Versus the present, and there might not be a better time for a Superman movie, especially one that is true to the core of his character. One of the biggest questions on my mind, though, is will David Cornsweet as Big Blue and Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane resonate with audiences? Because what does scare me a little bit is how much people loved Lex Luthor in just that one clip that we've seen of him. The reaction to that clip has mostly been how awesome he is and not how awesome Cornsweet is, and they're both doing a great job. And the reason that concerns me is while it is very important to have a good and captivating villain, it is also important that he does not overshadow the good guy that we're supposed to be rooting for. To simplify it a little further, it's a problem because Superman is going to be in a lot more movies than Lex Luthor is in this universe. In my mind though, everything we've seen from Cornsweet is full of life, passion, and charm in a real, authentic way. And it's not just the movie clips. Even in the promotion of this movie, Cornsweet and Brosnan have sort of been playing their characters at times, and you can see the charisma they have, and it should translate to them being perfect for these roles. Plus, we haven't even really seen all the dramatic and heartfelt moments that are gonna make audiences relate to these two. So I do have pretty high hopes that this movie can be great on its own. My prediction is that this movie will be so good that Superman will be everybody's favorite hero for the rest of this year and maybe even going forward, and will probably regain his popularity alongside Batman. But there are still some big factors that we need to address. It cannot be overstated that the MCU changed movies in the last decade, and it has had a domino effect leading into this one. And yes, there was a handful of other big movie franchises like Harry Potter, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and many others that helped pave the way to allow the MCU to do what it ended up doing to the movie industry. But while we had those big franchises, they weren't the clearly defined, interconnected universe the MCU was. It generated an ungodly amount of hype, a ravenous online community, and cultural moments that no one can deny. They had an absolute death grip on movie theaters, no matter how good or bad the movies were. It was a very well orchestrated plan, and every piece of the puzzle came together for them. Consequently though, DC, being the obvious rival to Marvel's dominance, brought about the Snyderverse, which also brought out a lot of failure. And this has to be a pretty big concern for the heads at Warner Brothers and DC about this universe's potential success, because they have the weight of their own expectations to go along with the expectations that the MCU left behind. And that leaves a lot of pressure for the DCU to essentially fill the MCU-shaped void. So far though, from everything we've seen, it seems pretty clear that James Gunn's DCU is going to have a very different feel from Zack Snyder's Snyderverse. And for general audiences, this is key, because they need to reestablish that hope and trust that DC Comics movies can be turned into something great, especially when it's not just a Batman movie. The other thing that Gunn has in his pocket is that he's already got a very good track record of making great comic book movies and shows. In fact, one of the first things he did for Warner Brothers was clean up the Suicide Squad mess that was left behind by the Snyderverse. But I think one factor that might be entirely out of their hands, and one of the reasons why the MCU is struggling so much now, is because of superhero fatigue. Even though people love the MCU, we had a whole decade of superhero movies occupying every single theater auditorium. And we still see it now to some extent, or we get another movie based on another very well-known IP like Barbie, or movie franchises like Jurassic World. The good news is, I think by James Gunn's comments, it seems like this expanded universe is going to feel very different from Marvel's, and I think that should allow it to separate itself at the very least. But as I already mentioned, the MCU did a lot to change the movie industry as we know it today. And that brings me to my final but very major concern with this franchise's success, and that is simply people just don't go to the movies anymore. This is the saddest topic of the whole video. This is where I gotta get real with you. Movies are dying, and of course there are a lot of reasons for that which we don't really have time to get into. A couple of them though are DVDs and VHSs being destroyed by streaming, which has also caused a lot of movies to not even enter movie theaters anymore. And streaming has generally affected greatly the upside and profitability that movies used to have. But simply put, the biggest problem that movies are facing now is we're fucking broke, man. If you're an adult, you know how much a movie has to entice you for you to be willing to spend an entire hour's worth of work and then some to pay for a movie ticket plus concessions. This is part of why movies with pre-existing fan bases are some of the only things studios will greenlight. The idea that at least with this, audiences know what they're getting, so they're willing to take the risk. Now don't get it twisted. We can watch a movie or two a year, but any more than that, and your wallet starts to hurt a little bit. So while Superman may do well, it's the other movies after that that are the concern. So sure, the first Justice League movie, the first Wonder Woman movie, the first Batman movie, those will all do really well. But it's the ones that come after that, and the ones after that, and the ones with lesser named characters. The consistency with those, that's going to be the issue. Warner Brothers is going to want to push out 3 to 5 movies per year, and as far as the timeline and the stories within them go, there's going to be a lot of justification to do it, other than, will people actually buy tickets? Another problem that this movie and the movie industry in general is facing today that seemingly no one wants to accept is that there are no more superstar actors and actresses anymore. Again, I come back to the MCU, but their timing was so utterly perfect, and we really don't talk about it enough. Because when their franchise started, they not only had the hype and the clear direction of all of us growing up with superhero movies and shows in the 2000s asking one simple question: What if we saw heroes teamed up in a movie together? And with that, they got the last gasp of the Hollywood superstar. They got Robert Downey Jr. and his comeback, Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, and more to lead their franchise as established actors and actresses that still hadn't reached that superstar potential at the time, the kind of actors that could pique your interest. It also helped that they had a couple of other beautiful and charming, talented people, but sorry, I'm getting off track for some reason. Point is, the superstar Hollywood actor that drives films doesn't really exist anymore, and there isn't anybody else that's coming up either. I mean, the biggest, most notable name with a major role in this movie is Nicholas Hoult. And don't lie, most of you didn't even know his name before this movie, and you actually just knew him as, oh, it's that guy. Like, My Canadian Boy, Nathan Fillion, is arguably the biggest name in this entire movie, and he's just playing Guy Gardner, which, you know, it's not nothing, but I think you get my point. And like I said, there is no one coming up. Even if you took, say, the two biggest current stars in Pedro Pascal, who is already taken, and Timothée Chalamet, I'm sorry to break it to you, for as much as I like them as actors and love them as people, they aren't that level, man. And I'm not just saying that. Look at Timmy's highest grossing smaller name movies where he's a leading role, where he has to drive it at his peak, which is right now within the last 5 years. And sadly, it's not even close to what the old superstars of Hollywood have been able to do. To put a bow on this, let me be clear about something. This is not about their talent as actors or how likable they are, because they are very talented and they are very likable. It is the industry that has moved away from the superstar actor, because if one actor can drive that much revenue, they can ask for a much bigger piece. So the industry is trying their best to not rely on them anymore. And I know this video has turned into a video about the state of Hollywood, but it is saying a lot that our attention spans have been reduced so drastically that no one can maintain that hype for even a few months, unlike the 90s and the 2000s where they were maintaining hype for like a decade. Essentially, what I'm saying is the fate of the movie world hangs in the balance. No pressure, guys. And by the way, before we're done, without rewinding the video or looking it up, what's his name? I literally just told you, so you should be able to remember that, right? Take your time. Pause the video if you need. Wow, all that time and you still can't remember his name, eh? Wow. Huh. That's crazy. Huh. Well, maybe by the end of the movie you'll remember it. That's all for part 1. In part 2, we'll talk about what we still need to know about the DCU. Assuming Superman does well, or whether or not it does or doesn't, there's still more than enough great reasons for you to subscribe to this channel. And drop a like while you're at it, and maybe drop a comment below as well on what you think will be the fate of the DCU. And I'll see you all in the next one.